Welcome to MarketStream.live. It is May 8th, Monday, 2017, and I want to welcome everyone to the Overnight Action Report. This is where we take a look at Asia and all the action that has already occurred this new trading week, the second trading week in May. My name is Joseph Cusick with the Cusick Group Securities offered by MoneyBlock. Let's jump right in, folks. And one of the things that I want to point out right away is a lot of people question about, well, Joe, I really enjoy your videos, but I just don't understand what you're talking about. And so why I segmented these different videos the way I did was because your portfolio is actually made up of these different components of stocks, bonds, futures, commodities, all from different parts of the world. And so I think it's really important that A, you understand what's going on in those parts of the world, and then B, you start to think about, well, do I have exposure in my 401k, my 403b, my KEO if I'm self-employed? You're going to look at the structure of your portfolios then, and now you're going to understand, oh, I need to have emerging markets or foreign exposure to foreign stocks. For example, your portfolio, if you have somewhat of an aggressive to semi-aggressive portfolio, is going to have anywhere between 10 and 25% of its portfolio makeup made up of stocks that trade in Japan, China, Hong Kong, India, Australia, just to name a few. And so when you hear what I'm about to talk about, like what happened in the Nikkei is the stock exchange in Japan. And seeing that the Nikkei is up 450 points or 2.3%, you're going, oh, wow, that really moved to the upside. That's very bullish. I wonder if I have exposure in my portfolio. Well, now you can go back and ask your advisor, or you could look at your portfolio statement and you could see maybe you had 5% exposure to Japan. And if it's bullish exposure, which that's mostly what people's core portfolio is, long stocks and so forth, that this would actually be a positive for your portfolio. You're feeling good when you wake up in the morning and you understand it, right? This is very important. I think the fact of the matter is that people's financial acumen is so low. In other words, you just don't understand what's going on with your portfolios, and this is the majority of your wealth. Other than your home, this portfolio is going to be what's going to take you from 65 years to 90 years old. So put it in that perspective. All right, let's jump in and take a look at the markets. Let's look at some of the real fun stuff. And as I had said, the Nikkei finished up the session overnight up 450 points, up 2.3% at $19,895.70. Now, what's notable here, they were closed for 3 days last week. There was a bunch of holidays, and so there's a lot of pent-up demand. The demand was catalyzed by the fact that their currency, the yen, the Japanese yen, has been just tumbling to the downside. If you start to see that that country's capital is starting to tumble, that's a positive for companies like exporters. So specifically, you've heard of names like Toyota or Mazda. These are car makers. Automakers did very well. As a matter of fact, Toyota Motors and Mazda were both up 2% in the Japanese markets. Now, some of these companies do have stocks that are traded here in the United States, like, for example, Toyota Motor, ticker symbol TM. Check it out today. See if that's up. A weak yen, a weak Japanese currency, is good for companies that produce goods and then export them to countries like the United States. Okay? Because then the U.S. currency is stronger. That means that they will buy these less expensive goods. And that is what we saw occur overnight for the automakers in Japan. That was one of the catalysts as well to the upside. So we're going to keep a close eye on that dynamic. But this move to the upside, this 2.3% move to the upside in Japan is something that we haven't seen since basically 2015. So a very, very impressive move. Now let's take a look at the Shanghai Composite. China's a little bit of a different bag this morning. We've been watching the Chinese markets very closely. They have had a really tough time moving to the upside. And this is somewhat of a flag that we're going to have to keep an eye on. The government has been putting some pressure on lending standards, as well as the the regulatory standards as far as margin in the equity markets, the stock markets. This has kind of put a little bit of pressure on the bulls in China. And as a matter of fact, when I took a look at China's import-export data that came out overnight, that was a little bit alarming. What we saw was that their import-exports were up about 18.8%. Now that sounds pretty robust, but the expectations were at around 29%. So, and what's even more significant is that you're seeing a pretty significant drop in exports. And so that is what is really starting to raise some flags on what is going on in China. Now, also you can, because of the stricter lending standards, you're starting to see that some of the shadow banks are under some pressure. Liquidity is something that we have to watch very closely in the Chinese markets. And right now, there seems to be a little bit of a tightening of supply, which is actually capping the bulls right now. If China starts to slow down, if there is uncertainty in China, that's going to raise some flags. And again, you want to look at your portfolio, look at your exposure. That's going to have a ripple effect. You know, when you look at countries that are next exporters, like Japan, China, seeing that exports are down in China, that's going to put potential pressure on other facets of your portfolio. For example, take a look at if their exports are down. In other words, China is exporting less. That means they could be exporting less cars because China doesn't manufacture automobiles. If they are actually importing less cars from the likes of US, watch Ford, watch GM. These are big automakers here in the United States that actually ship quite a few vehicles to the Chinese continent. I'm trying to show you how this all works. There's a big type of ebb and flow with all of these different numbers and the movements of these markets that not only affect their geo-targeted market, specifically China, but it's also going to impact here in the United States. Now, Hong Kong had strong numbers from both finance and they did see some autos on the move, some more niche autos. We're watching that very closely. Maybe they're using the portal of Hong Kong instead of importing them into directly to China and mainland. They're going through Hong Kong. We'll see how that works, but the performance in autos actually kept the Hang Seng up about 0.4%, and we saw the Shanghai Composite was down almost 0.8%. So there's a little bit of a mixed bag here. We'll watch that closely. And then finally, India. Now, India is a big services economy. They also have some auto exposure as well as some metals exposure, especially in the steel markets. India has been performing very well, but has been in a grind for the last couple of weeks. You can see this consolidation here. When I say consolidation, it just means that these markets are staying in a very tight range. That means neither the bulls nor the bears have any type of conviction at this juncture. Status quo. And as long as it stays above this green line, which is the 20-day moving average, you're seeing that the short-term bulls are in control, and that red line is the 50-day moving average. That means that the intermediate-term bulls are in control. Any break of those means that the markets may be shifting their sentiment. In other words, they may be becoming a little bit more bearish based on a short-term or intermediate-term basis. This black line down here is the 200-day moving average. Those are those long-term buy and hold type of investors. They are still very strong, very committed to the market, and have not been challenged in over 3 months. So we'll watch this again very closely. All right, folks, that is it for the overnight action report in Asia. I'm glad you joined me this morning. We will be back online in about 15 minutes at 8:45 Eastern Time. We're going to be talking about everything that's going on in Europe, and it is exciting. There is a new French president, President Macron, won by a landslide. So the markets, you may see a little bit of a sell the news type of opportunity there, but we'll have to take a look at it. So join me here at MarketStream.live. Take care.